So you want to jump into the video game World of Warcraft, or you just want to charge into battle screaming, or maybe they just want to jump into a fantasy MMORPG game with their friends. That could be the reason as to why they want to try out World of Warcraft. Actually, yeah, you could be right. That could be a reason as well. Well, if you want to play World of Warcraft, there are two versions of the game that you can pick from. There's Retail World of Warcraft, or there's Classic World of Warcraft, which is the best version that you should play.
Oh my god.
All right, bro, hold on a second. We can't just go on full-scale rants as to why they should play our version that we suggest of the game. Why don't we do this? We'll both have our time to share why they should jump into either Retail or Classic WoW, and then the viewer themselves can decide which version of the game they want to jump into. How does that sound? Actually, that sounds perfect. I'm looking forward into diving into it. All right, in this video, we're gonna go ahead and dive into the two different versions of the game. I will be supporting Retail World of Warcraft, and I'm gonna be repping Classic WoW. And spoiler alert, I am probably kind of like a new player sharing my opinion as to which version of the game you should jump into. We are actually new players. I started playing the game in early February 2023, so we're noobs sharing our opinion. But regardless, I'm giving a very unique opinion as to which version of the game that you should try out, because I'm not some hardcore crazy player who's super into the game and knows the best way to DPS and do the most numbers. Yeah, we sometimes don't even know what our skills are when we're reading our skill bar. We are that new. Exactly. And that's why this video is probably a little bit more unique than some of the other ones that are out there on the internet. But have no fear, I have played Retail World of Warcraft, and I am actually playing Classic WoW on Twitch. I'll be live streaming it there. You should check me out. Okay, bro, listen, there's no reason for you to start, sharing the Twitch channel that early on. Let's just go ahead and jump into the video. So which version are we going to start off with? I think we should probably start out with the version that has been around for the longest, technically speaking, which is actually Retail World of Warcraft. This version of the game has so many updates that have been sprinkled into the game over the past 20 years. If you want to go ahead and try and beat the Lich King with an overpowered character, you can do that in this game. If you want to play the newest expansion that Blizzard Entertainment is constantly adding updates on, currently with this video, it's the War Within, you can do that in this video game. They're constantly adding brand new transmogs into the game for you to acquire in new raids, seasonal updates, all this kind of stuff. There's always something to do within Retail WoW. So what makes it stand out compared to its younger little sibling, Classic WoW? Well, there's a lot more to do in the game. There's way more classes to pick from at the character select screen, as well as way more customization for your character. Classic is a bit more limited. Obviously, the game was made in 2004 and hasn't been updated since. But with Retail WoW, if you want to be a giant dragon walking around in the game, or maybe you're just looking to have more hairstyles to pick from when you create your character. Yeah, if you want to have dreadlocks as a human, you can't do that in Classic World of Warcraft. It's only allowed in Retail WoW for the time being. I don't know, maybe they'll make Classic Plus at one point and we'll have new character creation options, but for the time being, if you want to be a little dreadlock human boy, you have to play Retail WoW. Aside from that, though, when you jump into the game, you might think, okay, I'm super far behind. How am I going to go through the game and actually get to the max level? Currently, it's level 80, but I don't know. Maybe when you're watching this video, it's level 100 or 200. Who knows? Well, how do you catch up? Blizzard Entertainment makes it very easy for you to actually level in the game. The main appeal with Retail WoW is for you to actually hit max level, so that way you can start farming out higher level gear. That way you can jump into the raids in the game or Mythic Plus. Now, these are the two different, I guess I would say, end game content that a lot of players jump into. With raids, it's your typical large-scale player group activity in an instance where there are multiple bosses that you can defeat, and hopefully one of them drops those items that you're looking for, and you have your fingers crossed that you win the role to get that item. Raids are some of the most fun I've had within World of Warcraft. It's one of my favorite things that I really like about Retail, and Blizzard does a great job at tuning it and making it so it's still difficult, but it's not easy for you to kind of steamroll through. And if you think, wow, this raid is kind of easy, there are higher scales. You have the normal difficulty, you have heroic, and then you have mythic difficulty. Wow, I've only done a couple of mythic raids within World of Warcraft, and they're actually pretty hard if you don't have a good or high enough item level. Aside from raids, the other type of content that players like to do is called Mythic Plus. This is essentially dungeons that are scaled up. So if you want to do a level 2 mythic dungeon, that essentially means there will be some kind of variables that are sprinkled in to make it a bit more difficult. Maybe the enemies are a bit more tankier, they have more health. Perhaps you have a debuff on your character that makes it a little bit more difficult. And of course, the dungeon or mythic dungeon is timed. So you can't just kind of steamroll your way through, take some breaks, to eat some food, or I don't know, scroll on TikTok to watch some moopliss content. No, you got to go through and there's a timer that you got to beat if you want to get the loot from the mythic dungeon. And it constantly scales up, which is really fun because you could do content that is normal. You used to do this dungeon before and you're like, it's easy, it's whatever, I did it once. But this is constantly evolving. You can try and challenge yourself and be like, okay, can I do a level 5 mythic dungeon? Or can I actually hit that max level of level 10 for this mythic dungeon? Or is that too difficult? Can I only do a level 8 for the time being? This is constantly getting more difficult as time goes on. Of course, the rewards are a bit better, but this is something that a lot of players like to do. But maybe you're a solo player and you're like, I don't have time to put together a group or try and get into a guild to run this instance-based content. How can I enjoy World of Warcraft? This would be when the delves come into the game. This is essentially solo instance dungeons that you can do with NPC companions. In all honesty, delves are fun if you're looking to do it once or twice every once in a while, but in my opinion, it's an MMORPG game. It's way more fun when you do instance-based content with other players, which means you can do delves with other players. It's something that you can consider, and I would recommend doing this instead of jumping into it with your NPC companion name, Bran, or whatever his name is. He's so annoying. He doesn't heal me when he needs to, but whatever. He's kind of a meme at this point. I recommend playing the MMORPG game with other players. Whoa, that's crazy. And when it comes to playing with other players, you might find that they have some unique looking outfits, and then you'll ask them, how did you get this piece of armor? Where did you get this weapon? And this is when the other element of retail WoW comes to shine so much brighter compared to its little sibling Classic. With retail World of Warcraft, there's so much transmog. This means that there's lots of different armor, there's lots of different weapons, and there are tons and tons and tons of mounts to collect in the game. This means that you'll spend a lot of time going back through old content to put together a unique looking appearance for your character. I think a lot of players really enjoy this aspect of retail World of Warcraft, so much so that when they're done getting together an outfit and a mount that matches that outfit for their main character, they will create an alt character to make a very unique outfit for them, so that way when you log into the game, your warband where all the characters are at this kind of campfire area, you can look at all the characters and be like, wow, I made all of these characters. They're all decked out in very unique appearances that I collected across all of Azeroth. This is something that is truly amazing. And to be honest with you, I think I covered a lot of points as to why players like to play retail WoW. I'm sure there are other points that you might want to drop in the comment section down below. But I do know that if I take up too much time, this guy over here is going to be incredibly rude to me later. So I'll go ahead and stop talking. Let's give the microphone over to our classic World of Warcraft fan over here and see as to why you should play that version of the game. All right, take it away. Yeah, I can't believe you actually listened to that guy chat for that long. Let's dive into the best version of the game, Classic World of Warcraft. So Classic World of Warcraft is the version of the game that people literally ruined their lives playing. They dropped out of college, they stopped dating their girlfriends, they wanted to level up and get to endgame within this version of the game. There's no flying mounts in the game, you have to run everywhere on foot. That is until you hit level 40 when you can finally get your mount. That means that the game's world and scale is so large and massive. Of course, you think, well, I have to run everywhere? Is this just a running simulator? Well, it isn't, because you can unlock flight paths in certain areas, but the fact that you have to run everywhere in the game at first makes the game's world feel so immersive and massive for you as a player. This is something that you'll realize Classic WoW is a bit more slower compared to retail WoW. It's more of the journey to leveling up to max level than just rushing to max level and then doing a bunch of end game content. The real journey with Classic WoW is trying to level up and get to level 60. There are some classes that you can pick from in the game. They do have a little bit of character customization. I know the previous guy was chatting about how, oh, there's more hair in our version of the game. Who cares, bro? Just make your character. It doesn't matter. You're gonna deck them out, and hopefully some good armor drops that you get from different enemies and different dungeons, and then eventually you'll be running through the game. And you don't want to get too tied to your character if you end up playing the hardcore version of the game, where if you die, you have to delete your character and go back to level 1 again. So who cares about spending an eternity at character customization? It does not matter. Essentially, if you play hardcore WoW, like, you are in the thick of it. You better be prepared to dive into it and maybe lose your character. Unless you're a Giga Chad like me who hasn't died. Yeah, I'm level 30 right now. But regardless, why should you play Classic WoW? The journey is a bit more slow. It's a really chill game, and you'll get to understand why MMORPGs are where they are today. This version of the game is the reason why MMORPGs still exist. It's so massively successful, Classic WoW, that people are still playing this old version of the game 20 years later. That should speak for itself. The music when you enter Stormwind for the first time, the experience that you get going through dead mines and kind of freaking out, like, am I gonna make it through? Exploring the different zones within the game that you would normally just fly over in retail because you quickly hit max level, so you didn't have to go to zone to zone to zone to level. When it comes to Classic WoW, you'll be experiencing most of the zones within the game. Of course, if you do make an alliance character and you never roll on over into the Horde, then maybe you won't see all the zones, but for the most part, you're gonna see a lot more compared to retail World of Warcraft. You're going there because of quests, you're going there, you know, to get through a map to unlock a flight path in the next zone that is, you know, neighboring it. The world within Classic WoW is just, I don't know, it's just a whole lot more immersive than retail WoW, at least in my opinion, because you're not rushed to some certain area in the game to get to end game. No, you're slowly leveling and going through the game world. I recommend a couple of add-ons though if you're going to play Classic World of Warcraft. One of them is called Questy and the other one is called VoiceOver. It essentially will voice over the text that a lot of people will just skip over when it comes to quests, but if you want a AI voice that actually does a pretty fairly decent job at voicing the quests, if you want them to essentially voice over the quest and read things out loud, I would install this add-on because it makes the questing and the experience with it way more better in my opinion. Aside from that though, there is end game content if you make it to the end. They do have big raids, like way more players than you would actually experience in retail World of Warcraft. See, with Classic they had larger scale raids. I think it was with 50 or 40 people. I'm still new. I'm still only level 30, so hey, go easy on me. But I think the larger scale with more players in a raid makes it all the more epic. I think with Classic WoW, it's more simple. You know, there's not tons of skills within your skill bar. There's only the set from level 1 to 60. Obviously, with retail WoW, they have sprinkled in a bunch of things like, oh, you have, you know, like different skills that you can pick, and there's more talent tree things that you can deck out, and it's just way more confusing. I feel like with Classic WoW, it's a bit more tamed down. You have still the talent points that you can kind of build out a different tree and different skills, and obviously, your skill bar will look pretty loaded if you really want it to. but it's still dumbed down in a way that is a bit more simple to understand. There's a reason why people stick around with Classic, because it feels cozy. This is something that a lot of players love to experience, the music, the different content, and of course, when you're playing through the dungeons within Classic, most of the time you're within the level bracket. So it's going to be a challenge for you, or at least other players within your group, when you're doing instance-based content. The main appeal with Classic is just knowing that this game led to so many other MMORPGs rising from the ground up. There wouldn't be a Guild Wars 2 if Classic WoW didn't do so well. There wouldn't be New World, or even any other MMORPG that is out there and that has been influenced by Classic WoW. It wouldn't exist without this game, and that's why this game is worth playing at the end of the day. Now, of course, you can't really deck out your character in transmog, but that does not mean that Blizzard isn't thinking and cooking in the kitchen with Classic Plus, and I think I'll spend a quick minute chatting about what Classic Plus is. Everyone really loves Classic World of Warcraft. This is their favorite version of the game. They still play it to this day, and it's constantly fun because when they hit the 60, they go, okay, do I want to try out, the hardcore version or re-roll another character? Blizzard knows, though, that this version of the game isn't forever. People will churn out eventually when you hit level 60, when you do the raids, when you get the best gear. You'll probably stop playing the game unless you make another character or play with a friend or join a guild. It's very important to play this game with other players. I highly suggest it. But they are thinking about probably doing something what they call Classic Plus, is what the community is saying. It's essentially taking what Classic World of Warcraft is and building onto it. Basically adding on new content, new expansions, all that kind of stuff within Classic World of Warcraft, and that's very exciting. That could mean that the formula of what makes Classic World of Warcraft really good, fun, and exciting, they're not overcomplicating things, they're just adding more content within the game. Maybe that's more end game content for you to dive into. Maybe it's more middle of the road content for level 30s, 20s, 40s. We really don't know what it is, but we do know that Blizzard is trying things out. They tried it with Season of Discovery, which is like an off-brand version of Classic WoW, and of course they are doing that re-release of brand new servers where if you do want to continue playing the Classic WoW, you can jump into Burning Crusade later on in 2025, and I don't know, maybe we'll have Wrath of the Lich King in 2026. Like, Classic is really exciting, and Blizzard Entertainment knows that a lot of people really like this version of the game. It's hard to explain why Classic is good, because if you look at the gameplay, you're like, this looks kind of boring. It seems like it kind of plays by itself. But I promise you, if you dive into Classic WoW, you get to at least beating Deadmines, like past level 20, it'll click for you. Especially if you're looking for a challenge, I highly recommend diving into Hardcore WoW. It is like my favorite version of the game, especially if you don't know what you're doing. Every little encounter with a Murloc or anything in the game has you on edge, because you know if you die, you're going back to level 1. And essentially, this is why I recommend Classic WoW. Maybe you have some recommendations yourselves or advice as to why you play Classic WoW. Be sure to leave it in the comment section down below. I do read every single comment. I do want to take a moment to thank my Patreon supporters. It's only one person. Thank you very much, SassPass. I appreciate you. So you're nearing the end of the video, and this is where we want to know. What version of WoW are you going to pick? Are you going to jump into Retail World of Warcraft? Or are you going to jump into Classic WoW? Or are you going to jump into both? Let us know in the comment section down below. And thank you very much for watching to the end. As always, stay hydrated, gamers.